How's it going, friends? It's time for our June garden update. We've had a lot going on. Angie and I are both recovering from COVID, so we actually weren't able to get as many crops going as we wanted to. But I'm sure you'll still be pleased with this episode. We're getting into the peak season where we're harvesting and planting, and everything's going on. So stay tuned, and you'll get to see what we're up to.
Hi friends, you're watching Angie and Ben at Kind Heart Homestead. We are a couple starting our journey of sustainability and living with intent. Over the last couple years, we've combined my obsession to all things DIY with Angie's love of the land. This has led to an interesting assortment of challenges that neither of us would have anticipated. Just over the last couple years, we built a greenhouse, raised chickens, built a workshop, and renovated our house, all by ourselves. Come with us as we grow, not just in the garden, but together as a family. You are invited to join us on our adventure, and we hope our channel gives you the confidence to try new things outside your comfort zone and to achieve things you never thought you could.
Our first full pea harvest, we got 2 to 3 gallons worth of peas. You can see here how I go ahead and process them for the freezer. This is our original spinach garden for the year, and you can see a lot of the plants are bolting. So we're going to go ahead and take what leaves we can so Angie can remove them and replace them with a corn crop. We won't be quite out of spinach yet because we still have a couple more patches in the same garden bed. Here you can see Angie is cutting out the rest of the plant that we're not going to eat, and this can be composted or given to the chickens. And this is basically the first step in clearing out the bed for the new crop. We realized that the carrots, which were right next to the spinach in the same area, they probably were not going to get much bigger than this, so Angie went ahead and pulled them out so she could have a couple more feet for her sweet corn variety. Anytime we fluff up the soil, I recommend compacting it just a bit so a big sudden downpour doesn't make the seeds erode out of the ground. So you can see Angie's using her feet here just to kind of compress the areas where the seeds are going to go. And these are just sweet corn kernels. And speaking of corn, back to our other plot where we're growing popping corn, we're going to go ahead and try to do at least 2 sisters, and in just some of these areas, we're going to plant a couple green beans. Beyond some photos, you probably haven't seen a full layout view of our garden. Here you can see most of this main row was taken up with these peas, and you should remember from our cold weather crop videos where we had several patches of spinach, we had radishes, we had onions, but what you might not have seen was this huge volunteer tomato crop coming in at the end of the bed. And then here you would have seen last month where I planted probably 50 peppers kind of next to each other, back to back in these 1-foot spacing increments, just down the bed from our strawberry patch, and we have been getting some fruits from these. And then in the next row, this is going to be mostly okra. I basically kept planting them one after another until I ran out of seeds. So the last few holes there in the fabric, they're not going to have anything in them for a while, except for the end. I'm planting cucumbers at the end of every row, and then they can be trained to grow over into the walkways on the perimeters of the garden. And then here you can see our pumpkin patch starting to form. These are spaced at least 3 feet apart, but you can see they're getting pretty huge. But if you come with me back to the peas over here, you'll see we have to do a bit of work, pull some of this stuff out. Some storms have knocked some of these clusters of peas over. The best we can really do is keep harvesting and use some string perhaps to to hold the peas up until they can grab back onto this cattle panel. But we got a couple of these little 1 gallon totes, kind of a basket. There's no holes in the bottom though for drainage, from a local farmer's market. It came with strawberries in it. So this is kind of how we measure our peas. We don't have a scale. We're not really interested in weighing them right now. We're just kind of getting familiar with gardening, trying to figure out what crops we want. But at this point, we're filling up gallon bags worth of peas because we have so many. You can see here, when we were out of town, our whole patch of this variety of spinach got burnt. So we need to take it all out, and that helps us free up some space. It's hard to get a camera in here to focus, but you can see here, this is a task I do every day. I trim the suckers off. And it's basically like anytime you see a weird armpit looking thing where some leaves go down and some more viney pieces go up, I cut the upward one that's competing with the main stalk. Well, I guess we're beet farmers now because we got some pretty big beets here. This fresh compost that I used for this whole 50-foot bed seems to have worked perfectly for every crop we've grown here. A couple of these were small, but if you look closely, most of these are rivaling the size that you would get at the grocery store, but we know there's been no pesticides or any chemicals used on these ones at all. So that's great for us. We'll probably cut them up, put them in some stir fries, get some good, just some good vegetables. And we brought them over to our washing station just to get rinsed off. I'm in the background there cutting the greens off, and then I'm throwing the root part over to Angie. She just rinses the dirt down. There's no drainage on this sink. It just kind of goes down to the ground, leaves the dirt there, and then we'll bring the roots inside. And I've been holding off on the tallest part of the trellis just until the tomatoes got a bit taller. We have such hot weather that it's hard to do larger projects like this. But one morning I was able to get this ladder out and start wiring the bamboo horizontal piece to the vertical pieces that I already had in place. This is the best I can do for a close-up shot, but here you can see I brought 2 little cut pieces of flexible wire. This is much more flexible than the fencing wire that we use, and I need it to be flexible because you can see that I'm really torquing these around to kind of form a twist tie like you'd have on a bread bag. And I'm doing this at 2 different angles to kind of form a cross, and that is just some redundancy in case one of them breaks. This is so flexible that if I bend it too hard, it'll crack. This is just another camera angle to show you my process. I did the end of the garden bed first, and then the 2 sides were easier because I can simply set one end of the bamboo on the first bamboo that was installed, and then I only need to hold the weight of the other end. Here's a fun little slow-mo to show you how I throw the string over the bamboo without a ladder. Basically, I just repeat this process for the same amount of times that there are tomato plants, with some exceptions. There's a few plants that kind of went crazy with their splitting into multiple trunks. If there's 2 main trunks, I need 2 strings. Some of these varieties are more bush type and they don't have any main stalks, they're just tentacles. Those might get a few. But with this strategy, I can add as many strings as I want without any real issue. All I have to do is grab this little scrap of metal that I have with some holes drilled in it and a carabiner on one end. Use that to throw the string over, and then I just measure down to the bottom of the bed, cut the string, and repeat the process. I also tie a knot on each end to prevent fraying. Every day I go through this similar process where I prune off the suckers. I find the best route for the string line that doesn't interfere with the tomatoes, and I kind of bring that down into place. Get the tomato clip, pull the string into the hinge, and then clip it around a branched intersection so that way it can hold the tomato plant upright in any sort of instance where there's weight on the plant that's trying to pull it down to the ground. I wanted to show you these dragon tail radishes. You know that I had been replacing my radish crops because they're pretty fast growing. Well, I replaced one of them with these, which actually grow up into these huge bushes, and instead of eating the root part of it, you eat this weird seed pod flower thing that kind of comes out like a tentacle. You let them get pretty big and you use them as a garnish. And once again, to prevent the plant from getting too heavy and to prevent the sun from burning the peas, I need to come out and fill up a couple of these buckets. Angie noticed that her artichokes that she planted a long time ago, they looked ready. So we came over with the shears, and Angie's going to go ahead and harvest these. Not sure what we'll do with them yet, but they'll be in the kitchen if we need them. And our first yellow squash wraps up this video. Thanks for watching. Please like the video if you want to see more, and let us know what kind of gardening tips or gardening ideas you want us to try.